All right. So I think we're just going to, if the last people get seated, we can get started. So first of all, welcome to performance.sync. This is the second year that we are organizing this pre-event here. Last year we had 100 signups, I remember, and we had about 10 people on the waiting list. This year we closed the waiting list at some point because we had 100 signups and 60 people on the waiting list. So thank you all for turning up again. I also want to thank all the speakers that submitted talks. I know that we got so many submissions that we weren't able to accept a whole bunch of you. But thank you anyway for submitting, and we tried to balance it out with people who had a talk that was accepted last year. And with that, there's going to be a short break in the middle, and at the end there's going to be an interactive quiz, and there will be prizes. So you should definitely stick around for that. Now, there's going to be a whole bunch of difficult names again that I'm going to have to try to pronounce. Just like last year, I'll do my very best and hope that it kind of works out. As the first speaker, speaking about the 7 levels of a web performance journey, we have Sergey Chernyshev.
Thank you. How many times you can turn the connector, right, to know when it's live? Hello everyone, I'm Sergey Chernyshev. I work on the observatory team at Cloudflare, but you might also know me as a New York Web Performance Meetup organizer. I see a few familiar faces in the audience, which is awesome, New York. But I also built a few open source tools and helped a lot of companies through their web performance journey. So together with a couple of my meetup members, we decided to create this presentation to maybe help you go through this similar journey yourself. And I think, if anything, you will learn this is the slide. This is the core of the problem that we have, like if you need to promote performance in the organization, which is a language barrier. We geeks and engineers, we speak computers, we speak technology, we speak numbers, metrics, 3-letter abbreviations. How many 3-letter abbreviations you all know? Any? 5, 10, 20? Yes, exactly. This is, some people say it's English, although I know some of you don't use English at work, but you know, it's not that language, right? And business people, they use dollars as their language, right? More dollars good, less dollars bad. That's, you would think it's that simple, but let's simplify in this presentation, right? But also designers, right? They don't like this technology. The moment you show them the numbers and the charts and all of that, they're like, oh, go away, right? But they do care about the users, right? And this is what we are here about. We are about speed of user experience. Same goes for product managers. They want features and stuff like that. So all you can take away is that you just need to start speaking the same language and start speaking the language of people you meet in the conference rooms. So I'll walk you through the 7+ levels of the journey, kind of starting with where most companies start, right? And they start by not knowing about web performance. They're like, okay, I had no idea, right? They use some formula like this. It's obviously simplified, like usually this is e-commerce, but for media, you would have a similar formula where you have users, you convert them at a certain rate, get money out of them, and that's the up line, right? Top line, sorry, that's the English version. But some of these, as we know, depend on speed of user experience, right? They are not constant, right? And the next step for the company to realize that, maybe they read a magazine that speed matters, or one of you came to the boss and said, well, fast is great, let's make it fast, we'll make money, right? So quick show of hands. Who thinks the 10% conversion website is faster? Okay. Who thinks the 5% is faster? Okay, you're a party pooper. But, but like, you see, it's very obvious, right, to all of you, right? Like, the moment you position it very straightforward, it's easy because slow is upsetting. People become red like that, right? Like, they don't like it. They hate their phones. They leave your brand and all of that. So this is the stage where a company starts to get interested. But at the same time, that's as much as they know, right? Like, that's where the CTO asks somebody to go and figure it out, right? And obviously, we've seen quite a few of the improvement case studies, right? Like, if you're not familiar with WPO stats, that's our like a database of knowledge of how performance made you money. So this is where you bring that link, print it on paper, put it on the boss's desk and stuff like that. So not these specific studies, but like there are many of them there, right? So the next step is to start measuring, right? Like, you probably take out your favorite tool. Well, maybe you don't have a favorite tool yet, but you find the tool, you measure it, you get yourself a number, and the number represents some metric. We are not going to go into every metric out there, as I said, 3-letter soup, right? But you start measuring. And also, like, obviously, you like, oh, so, I need to set some kind of thresholds on it as well, right? So if we go from 4 seconds, for whatever that metric is, to 5 seconds, I probably don't want that to happen. So that will be my poor, and so on. And when I go to 2 seconds, it's good. And Core Web Vitals, I will be shouting out to them quite a few times because they kind of gave us some of those thresholds, right? Like, before that, we all were like, oh, it was 4 seconds, 2 seconds for this metric, that metric. Core Web Vitals told everybody, like, this is the thresholds you can start with, right? So good news. You got yourself a number, you start tracking it, you kind of understand things, what's good and what's bad. But what does that number actually represent? Remember, we talked about having experience of real users. But who is that user, right? Like, they seem not be very happy, right? But reality is that your website doesn't have one user, right? You might have made a measurement or two, but it's not representative of your real users. There are many, many users you have, and more importantly, they all have different experiences, right? So which of these users does this number represent? That's the next question you need to ask yourself. And in web performance space, again, thank you to Core Web Vitals. We might not have agreed on all of that as an industry, but I think they just said it, and they're like, we are going with 75th percentile. If you're not familiar with what percentile means, you order your users by the value you measure. You grab, in this case, 3/4 of the users, 75% of them, and your slowest one, or highest number, I guess, is your measurement, right? So at least we agreed on using that number as a representation, right? That particular user is your representative user, right? And we throw away the higher numbers for reasons of variability. There are many reasons why we chose P75 as an industry, but just believe us. Yeah. And the next thing that people usually do with their percentile, they start tracking over time, they create dashboards for it, right? Like, that's operational, what is it called, maturity, or whatever they call it, right? Obviously, 1 percentile is not great. I mean, so usually you would see the charts like this, right? Like, with a few percentiles. P99 was selected by the person from operations, P50 from marketing, and P75 from web performance team, right? It's a joke, but it's half joke, right? Like, so, and like, the top chart is probably more varying, right? So, but the P75 is more stable. That's kind of when you start tracking it. And many companies stop at this point, and I urge you to not stop. And by the way, I did forget one important topic from this moment. If you see the number, it doesn't have designator of percentile it was measured at, it's not a real number. It's a number. It measured something somewhere at one point, right? But it doesn't represent your users, right? There is no statistics. There's no like specific place. So always use a percentile. Sorry, back to this. So don't stop at this. And I see a lot of organizations where operations teams run the show, right? DevOps, a lot of performance effort comes from DevOps, for example, right? Or came from DevOps. So this is where they stop. Do not stop. And one of the reasons for it is that while these numbers are very scientific, remember we talk engineering terms, right? How do you even look, where are the users here, right? Like it's very hard to convert it to actual users. There's no red face here to know, right? I mean, surely, you know, we all scientifically powered people, we know how to make that connection, but it is a challenge. So I urge you all to look at histograms. And this is I don't know if it's a first emoji histogram, but it's like, basically why I love histograms is because every pixel on a chart represents a real user, whatever it's emojis or just regular pixels, right? That's why those lines on those previous charts were not as great as a representation, right? So I really urge you to remember to come back in your mind to every user. You need to know every user on your site, right? As you work on your performance, right? It's also a fun gimmick to do, right? So we are almost at level 6 already. So you started to know about your whole population. I think on the previous step at the percentile level, you started using real user measurement tools most likely, right? Because you collect data from real users. You have statistics. You learned the statistics, log normal distributions, because, by the way, this is not a bell curve. I don't know if it's obvious, but like by those red people going all the way to the right. But hopefully this is kind of you good with your data. Right? So what's the next step? I think the next step is where you finally start talking to business people, right? And the most obvious one is comparing like improvements, right? Like you had an improvement, you ran an A/B test ideally, right? Like or before after analysis, you compare to histograms, and you're like, okay, like some of our users moved to the left, and that's awesome, right? They got faster. And you can use some other charts that are actually better than overlapping histograms because of statistics. We can talk in the corridor later of why that is. But CDFs like can do some magic, and I recently learned about QQ plots. Is Kevin here? Yeah, there he is. So he told me about QQ plots. They are much more scientifically powerful tools to like visualize things, but remember, they don't have faces on them. So go back to histograms. I kind of, like, as much as I like my science brain, I come back to this again. Again, this is what you can do with histogram data. But most importantly, you should correlate your business metrics to your performance numbers. This is Cliff Crocker chart. I know it came out of Walmart back in the day, but I call it Cliff's chart. This is conversion rate overlaid over your histogram of performance, right? And it doesn't have to be conversion rate, especially for businesses that are like media businesses where they don't have like the traditional like e-commerce kind of conversion, like it can be bounce rate or whatever. Doesn't matter. Again, we didn't go into specific metrics today. But correlating them will help you a lot. Like finally you will say, hey, you see these users in the second column? They give us more money than the users farther away. Let's bring them all to the left, right? This is basically the answer, right? And you can then compare, like it's not like one thing you need to do, but A/B testing dollars is the best thing, right? So what we don't do yet, but we probably should all do, is innovate even further, right? Like this is some chart with more metrics, with more dimensions on it. Color, dimensions, right? Let's bring more data into it. Maybe this kind of visualization can unearth something, right? Again, this is bogus chart. This is not real chart. But what I'm saying is like, let's bring more data to it because I feel like we are looking for those visualizations that answer questions well. Here is another chart I recently learned about called violin chart, and I'm eager to try correlated metrics, right? Like basically all of our web performance metrics on a chart like this would look perfect, so it would be amazing. So innovate like this. And this journey started with me writing this tool. Maybe some of you remember it for a few years back. This is like a very complicated version of this model, right? Like hard to explain. But I hope that we will use this knowledge that we gained with this presentation and update the tool to be a little easier to use, maybe walk you through the journey. URL might change as well, by the way, just saying. So last but not least, I urge you to walk through this journey, understand where you stand today. There's no shame in not being 7+, 20 level, whatever, right? Like, understand where you stand. More importantly, understand where your organization stands. And try to bring those people on your team, on your business team, on your design team, closer to where you are, and then move farther as you go along. Don't just explain statistics to a person who doesn't care. You know, like, do this and make, bring them on this journey together. Don't do it alone. Thank you.